Hey guys, this is Sean Fennessy, the editor-in-chief of The Ringer, and I want to tell you about a podcast I host called The Big Picture. Each week, I welcome a different filmmaker to talk about their latest movie and how it was made. I've talked to the directors of some of my favorite movies, including Jordan Peele, Greta Gerwig, Rian Johnson, Barry Jenkins, and dozens more. You can find new episodes on the Channel 33 feed every Friday by going to theringer.com/podcasts or by subscribing to Channel 33 wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you'll check it out.
Welcome to the Ringer NFL show, part of the Ringer Podcast Network. I'm Kevin Clark, joined in studio in Los Angeles, California by Robert Mays. Robert, how was Coachella?
It was fun, man. I had a great time. It was very enjoyable. Good crew, good bands.
Who was the best band?
I mean, I saw Beyonce, so that was just an otherworldly transportive experience. I would say that was number one.
I've seen Beyonce a couple times, but only at NFL
First
events.
time.
Only at NFL events.
First time. It was an entirely
That's
different
not
concert
true.
experience.
You saw her at the Super Bowl.
That doesn't really count, though.
And
That's not a
it's
Beyonce show.
No, but you saw Beyonce.
Yeah, I guess so. But I wouldn't count that as like a Beyonce concert.
Were you there in the room when she sang the national anthem a couple years ago at that just small media event at the Super Bowl?
I don't think so.
Like the Thursday before the Super Bowl?
No, I don't think so.
I was there. It was very...
Where was that?
It was life-changing. It was in New Orleans, and she got criticized because she...
I was not at the New Orleans Super Bowl.
She was accused of lip-syncing at the inauguration.
Yes, I remember
the national
that.
anthem. So
Yep.
she came in, and there were probably a couple, like 100, 150, whatever it was, people in the convention center, and she just came in and said, "Everybody stand up," and then she sang naturally the national anthem. It was
that's
It was
awesome.
a moment wasted on me and my ilk.
Yeah, you didn't care.
I didn't care. I
Along
felt
with
very
every other writer
patriotic.
there probably
I felt
did not care.
Very, very patriotic. Okay, we're gonna get into some really interesting things because it is draft week, Robert.
I know.
We're gonna get into who the best player in the draft is. We're going to get into who this year's
Works for me.
Saints are going to be. Now, we'll explain that when we get there and another round of draft questions. But let's start out with kind of an intriguing question because this is a very fascinating draft in this sense. There could be 5 or 6 first-round quarterbacks.
Not only that, like 5 guys in the top 7 picks.
Right. And when that happens, weird things shake out after. There's
Yes.
a reason Luke Kuechly wasn't a top 5 pick. There's a reason.
What year was that? 2012?
Yeah, before that, it was 20. Yeah, it was 2012. It was a top. He was.
That's a weird draft.
He was 9th because it went Luck, Griffin, Tannehill, 3 quarterbacks. Although I got to tell you, the whole middle of that top 10 was a disaster zone. Richardson, Matt Khalil, Blackman, Claiborne, Barron's okay, but not the 7th pick.
That's
in the
why I
draft.
said it was a weird draft.
Tannehill and then Kuechly.
We
Anyway,
remember that draft for the quarterbacks, and then the year before was a monster draft.
Sure, but the point of it is that when there's a lot of quarterbacks, weird things tend to happen. Look
Yes.
at 2011. You have
Gabbert.
You have Cam Newton, Gabbert, Jake
Locker.
Locker, all sorts of weird stuff. I mean, there's J.J. Watt was not the 11th best player in that draft.
Essentially, in that draft, if you didn't pick a quarterback, you got an absolute superstar. Like, that was the rule.
That is true. Yes. Yeah, Ponder was after Watt, Fairley, then Quinn, Pouncey, Ryan Kerrigan. Cameron Jordan,
exactly.
24th.
Yeah, if you didn't pick a quarterback, you
Cam
got a
Hayward,
superstar.
31st. Absolute superstar, Andy Dalton, 35th.
Of course.
So I guess we want to talk about where that brings us in 2018. Because again, 6 potential first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
5 of them could go in the top half. So we're going to find out. Joey Bosa is a good example of a guy who was at 3 because the quarterback shook out the way they did at 1 and 2.
And then Elliott after that,
Elliott,
obviously.
Jalen Ramsey. So I guess the question is, Robert, leaving aside the quarterback question, who's the best player in the draft?
It's Barkley to me.
Mm.
I just think he's so talented. And I understand the running back value question.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, in a way, we've kind of come back too far. The pendulum has swung, and it might be 2 inches further than it should in terms of where we should think about running backs.
Okay.
Because I would not draft Leonard Fournette in the top 5. But I would draft Saquon Barkley in the top 5 because it's about pass catching value to me. If you can be a weapon in that area of the game,
Yep.
and you can dominate in that area of the game, then I think that it pumps you up.
So you would take Barkley if you had the first overall pick and you had a quarterback?
That's a really good question. Maybe.
If you were the Niners, for instance, I'm leaving aside McKinnon or whatever, but I'm just saying if you were a team like that where you were set at quarterback and you happened to back into the first overall pick, would you take Barkley?
If I needed a running back, yes.
Okay.
I would do it.
Okay. Because I think what's interesting about this draft is there are two players who might be the most talented players in the draft, one of them being Barkley, the other being Quentin Nelson, who are at positions that are not particularly valuable.
What do we mean when we say the best player in the draft, I guess? That relates to those guys.
Yeah.
Is it the biggest gap between them and everyone else in the position?
Who is going to have the best career relative to their position? Because that's what it is. That's how you judge the best
Nelson
player. Yeah, Nelson, Barkley. But what I'm saying is that there are guys. So if you were to say who are the most talented players in the draft, yeah, you'd probably go there. I think if I had the first overall pick and I was set at quarterback, I wouldn't take those guys. That's just a first overall pick draft value thing.
Yes, that's a value position.
Right. And so for me, if you're saying who are the best guys in the draft, I would say them, but I, again, would not use a top 5 pick on either of them. I would go probably Derwin James. If I was the Giants and I had talked, if I had
that's
talked,
a positional value thing too, though.
But that's what I'm talking. As far as safety goes, as far as defensive back goes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you look at the Jaguars last year. You look at any of these teams having a game changer in the defensive secondary, even though Derwin James can't be Jalen Ramsey because you cannot put him at cornerback and have him be a shutdown cornerback. Having a game changer.
I bet someone's going to try.
I mean, they can try. I mean, maybe they can. He's such a great athlete.
That's what I'm saying. I bet someone tries.
I'm just saying he's such a great athlete. You can do whatever you want with him, and that's the most important thing. I think that just the obviously defensive back play is as important as anything in the NFL aside from quarterback. If I was set at quarterback, I would definitely. I mean, obviously, I would try to trade out. But if you made me pick a guy, I would pick Derwin James. I love this. This is. I'm not even sure what to do with this. Lance Sterling compares him to Eric Berry, which obviously if you can get Eric Berry in the top 5 of the draft, you're going to take Eric Berry in the top 5 of the draft. Number 1 strength on NFL.com for Derwin James. Absolute alpha in the locker room.
I love that. Lance likes that stuff, just like how he plays to his teammates.
I just think it's funny.
Yeah, I like that though. Like if the fact that is the most notable thing about him is pretty cool.
This is great stuff. Okay, so here's a scouting report. Absolute alpha in the locker, number 1. Comes up to handle film sessions on weekends, number 2. When he talks, players listen is number 3. So we've gotten through 3. And the 4th one even is he hits all the weight, speed, and height marks.
That's what I'm saying. Okay? You haven't even mentioned the fact that he's a physical marvel.
We're at 5 on the list of strengths, and we finally get to extremely versatile weapon. So it's all these things. Oh, by the way, he's really good at football. I don't want to read too much into these scouting reports. I just think it's very funny the way it's presented.
I've read that many times, and I agree that it's an interesting way to present a player. But in that locker room for that program, that stuff really does speak volumes because they have so many high-level recruits and just prospects, period. If you can be the man in that locker room, that says something.
I went to the University of Miami, and I'm obviously not going to compare these two people, but you think about all the talent on the 2001, 2000 era Miami Hurricanes, the teams that went to the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, those sort of teams. Who was the absolute alpha dog? It was Ed Reed.
Yeah, I know.
And when
speech will forever resonate with me.
But when you become, that's what I give you that speech before we start this pod every single time.
Yeah, I put my heart in it, dog.
And if you can become the alpha when it's a lot of alphas, that's pretty important. Again, I don't want to put too much weight on that because the most important thing about Derwin James is he can do a hell of a lot of things in the defensive backfield.
Is Bradley Chubb in this conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I think Bradley Chubb, I've had this discussion with you and a couple of other people in the last couple of weeks. Bradley Chubb is hurt by the fact that Myles Garrett was such a physical freak last year. And I just compare him to Myles Garrett, and I said, well, he can't be the best player in the draft because Myles Garrett was once the best player in the draft. Even though it's unfair. I mean, if the Browns end up going Darnold 1, Bradley Chubb 2 with the 4th pick, that's a pretty good haul there. If they go, I don't know what they want to do with the 4th pick. They have a lot of options. They could take a second quarterback, but I think that's a pretty good building block. If you want to put Garrett on one side and Chubb on the other, look out.
Yeah, and they have a couple guys for depth too. Agba is like a solid player. That pass defense gets really interesting really fast if they do that.
Yeah, good thing Greg Williams is there to shake it all out.
Good Lord. The worst possible defensive coordinator. Like the worst.
I could think of some worse ones.
He's my least favorite.
He's your least favorite?
Yeah. Like in the league.
Do you find it odd that he had an insane bounty scandal and he is back in the league even though he's never good?
No. Because that's how the NFL works.
No, I just mean like a lot of times if a guy's not good, they're just like, we're just going to let that guy ride off and
You'd
not
think
get
so,
another
but
job.
it just seems like
why would you stick your neck out?
The
for Greg
inertia of
Williams?
NFL careers is very strong. That is what I would say.
It's a weird career from Greg Williams.
Has he ever been like a top half of the league defensive coordinator?
Wait, do you remember he got a huge payout because he wasn't named a Redskins coach? Are you familiar with this? He was like,
what a weird era.
He was like secretly coach in waiting for Joe Gibbs.
Oh my God. Like round 2 Joe Gibbs?
Yeah. He interviewed 4 times with Daniel Snyder for that job.
Why the 4th one? What can you possibly say?
What was going on in the 4th one? He was explaining the bounty scheme to Daniel Snyder. I don't know. He was also 17-31 with the Bills.
Like
just want to be clear on one thing. We have limited studio time.
Yes.
And so we're kind of under the gun, but you and I really feel passionate about Greg Williams. And so we're going to spend some time on this.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
It says a lot about the league.
It says more than just Quentin Nelson talk.
Yes,
okay.
100%.
Okay, so let's move on.
I'm ready.
So New Orleans Saints, this time last year, stuck in neutral. We're talking about whether or not Sean Payton is going to go somewhere else. Drew Brees, what's his future?
Ushering in a new era, I would say.
And then they have a draft for the ages.
In how long was it the best one? Like 10 years?
I mean, the Seahawks had some pretty damn good drafts.
That's true. The 2010 Seahawks draft is
the most
absurd.
Surprising thing was that apparently Jeff Ireland was responsible for the Saints draft.
Yes.
And then they got a contract
Even though
extension.
it was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, the fact that Jeff Ireland was the guy behind it made it once in 10 lifetimes.
So they get Lattimore in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin Kamara.
I mean, we can stay in the first round. They also got Ryan Ramczyk in the first round.
Ramczyk. I was waiting for you. You wanted to say
Yes.
that was your.
That's my corner for sure.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm going to go with the actual speedy athletes, and you can go with the
Well, he was
O-lineman.
very important because when they lost
Armstead.
Streif.
Well,
Streif.
Armstead was hurt as well at the beginning of the year.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
So he was able to play left tackle when Armstead was hurt. And then when Streif went down week 5, week 6,
Mm-hmm.
he played the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge for them.
I mean, it changed everything about the franchise. It got them to the brink of, I would say, if they had beaten the Vikings.
They absolutely could have gone to the Super Bowl.
They absolutely could have gone to the Super Bowl. They're a contender this year, without a doubt.
Yes.
And so that got us thinking, who is this year's Saints? Who is the team? And I don't want to say that's a team that's going to hit on a draft pick and then they're off to the races. It's just who is a good draft class away? And I think that the obvious candidates, anyone with a good quarterback and a decent coach and a couple of holes on one side of the ball. Who are your candidates?
My number 1 is pretty obvious, and it's the Chargers.
Yep, I knew you were going to say that. So
I know that's like my brand more or less, but I just think that
the Chargers are your brand.
Backing the Chargers when I have no reason to is definitely my brand. So I would say the Chargers for this reason.
You know who doesn't back the Chargers?
Chargers
the
fans that are non-existent. Yeah, exactly.
The city of Los Angeles.
I don't even think the people on the Chargers like the Chargers as much as I do. So
do you think the Chargers know that they play in Los Angeles?
No, they have absolutely no idea. So the offense in my mind is more or less set up.
Uh-huh.
So the line has always been the thing that's held them back. Injuries, whatever. Getting Forrest Lamp back, Pouncey, Feeney, Barksdale, Okung is left tackle. That's a group. Like, that's a real NFL offensive line. The rest of the skill position guys, good to go. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, healthy now, probably. Melvin Gordon is there. I like Eckler. I mean, they have a really decent group of both pass catchers and running back stable.
All set at tight end.
Good to go. Defense is the spot where there are a couple holes, but it's not as if they're the 25th ranked defense and they have to build something up. They're a top 10 defense and they have like 3 guys that they need.
So
safety, linebacker, interior defensive line.
I kind of like NFL.com's setup where they have just 4 different mock drafts from really smart people, and you just kind of look at the wisdom.
It's an
of the
important
crowds.
page.
There are 2 people. One is Daniel Jeremiah. One is Charlie Casserly, who have, in a stunning fall, the Chargers drafting Derwin James at 17.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
I would move. I live in Los Angeles. I would move to
That's almost
Carson.
not even fair. Like, they might become my actual favorite team if something like that
Carson,
happens.
California.
That's exactly the type of guy they need.
I don't think it's going to happen. That'd be my guess.
How does he fall that far?
I don't think he does.
That makes no sense to me. If it does, that's literally. So that's what happened with Lattimore, right?
But Bucky Brooks and Charles Davis have him going 7, which is more like it.
Yeah, that's a pretty big gap. But literally, that's what happened with Lattimore. Like, people thought he could go 3 to the Bears, and he's there at 11, and the Saints can get a guy that they never thought would be there at 11.
Right. So that, I think, is far and away number 1. There are a couple of intriguing options here. Number 1, because of the injury, we're not going to play with the Packers here, right? Because they had the 14th pick. They were 9-7 last year. We're not counting them as a team that could go from non-playoffs.
Because they have too many holes for like that to be the case.
Whoa!
The Packers are not a good roster.
I understand that, but I mean, when you have Aaron Rodgers, he is he is a problem solver.
But it's not as if Green Bay has 3 or 4 spots where you're like, they need an upgrade here, and they'll be a complete team.
Okay,
that's not true for them. In my mind.
Okay. How do we feel about the Detroit Lions?
What are the spots?
So I think the defense was quite bad last year.
Yeah, it's been that way for a little bit.
Yeah. I think that there's intriguing guys. Charles Davis has Taven Bryan going. I mean, if you added a great
surprised you have not talked about him more.
He's my draft. Have you looked at the document? He's my draft crush.
That makes sense. I haven't gotten down that far yet.
It's there, buddy.
Yeah. The fact that it took this long is the biggest upset of draft season.
I was saving the best for last.
Okay.
I just think again, when you look at the profile of what the Saints were. You have the quarterback. The biggest question mark there is Matt Patricia a good coach? And that's nothing against Matt Patricia. We literally don't know. We just have no evidence either way.
What's your gut feeling about that?
So there's a couple of different ways you can be a good coach. One is to be an absolute visionary and say, this is what I want I want to do nothing but tall cornerbacks 5 years ago, or I want nothing but athletic defensive linemen. I don't care about size, that kind of thing. Have a vision. That's the easiest way. Be able to out-scheme them.
Yeah. So that's the McVay kind of model of things.
Yeah. Be able to out-scheme them, have a vision. I think the other way is just to be a really good motivator or just be really organized. Like organization is like, there are so many, not so many, I don't want to overstate it. There are a lot of teams who just don't install their whole playbook in training camp because the coach just doesn't understand timing or organization. So there's a number of routes to be a good coach. I don't know which one he's going to take because I've never seen him as a head coach. So it's way too early to judge.
Being able to get 100 people moving in the same direction is the most underrated part of being an NFL head coach. It's a corporate job in a way that people don't really understand.
It's insanely corporate. And we've now overrated the he's a CEO thing.
Agreed.
But they are CEOs.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're in charge of many different people. And not only that, the biggest thing, one of the biggest things in coaching no one understands, Bill Parcells, you say that, he said, never get a bunch of losers because they get in little groups and they complain about being losers, right? And the biggest thing is there can be 3 people in your locker room who you're not even paying attention to who can just be so negative they're going to start a rebellion.
Yeah.
And those are the things you don't even think about that you're going to have to be on top of. That Patricia didn't have to worry about. Belichick would just cut them and just say,
that's true.
I'm tired
that's
of
how
this
he
guy.
deals with all problems.
And now Matt Patricia, we have not seen him face one problem in that regard. So you cannot make a judgment until you see what they do.
And here's the thing: if you're the schematic coach, if you're the guy who has a vision in terms of
Belichick, by the way, is all of these things.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, he wears every hat. But if you're that guy, it's important to understand delegation for the organizational aspects. And that's exactly what McVay did. He's like, I'm going to be the genius. You guys do the bullshit I don't want to do.
All right, coming up, we'll break down the linebackers and play another round of Would You Rather, plus another edition of draft coverage. But before that, let's take a quick break.
This is JJ Redick here to talk to you about the JJ Redick podcast, part of the Ringer Podcast Network. Currently, I play in the NBA for the Philadelphia 76ers, but you may know me from my previous teams, the LA Clippers, Milwaukee Bucks, and the Orlando Magic, or from my college days at Duke University. Being a professional basketball player, I have a great opportunity to talk to a lot of interesting people, and the podcast is a place where I can share those conversations with you, the listener. On my show, I sit down with athletes, celebrities, and a variety of other special guests. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the JJ Redick Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
Okay, we've been doing Would You Rather the last couple weeks. We did tight ends, we did quarterbacks. By the way, I've changed my opinion on the quarterbacks over the weekend.
I also have like a couple tweaks to my points. I don't want to get into them right
I'm
now.
higher on Baker Mayfield, still high on Darnold, less high on Rosen's play.
I'll say one thing. So I said if I was an NFL GM, I would pick Rosen,
Yeah.
like to keep my job.
Yeah.
I'm changing that to Darnold.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Weird.
The safe choice, in my opinion. The highest floor.
We did completely different things last week, and we both came to that conclusion independently.
Yeah, maybe the revelation came somehow.
Okay, so we're going to do linebackers.
Yes.
Now-
In my opinion, compared to previous drafts, the most stacked the position has been in at least 5 years.
So do you want to do all of them in the first round, or do you just want to do
So who
the
are your
big
first round
two?
guys? That's what I would say.
So Roquan Smith,
yes.
outside linebacker out of Georgia. Then you have Tremaine Edmonds, inside linebacker from Virginia Tech.
Yes.
Two fairly different players, but both of them extremely versatile.
Yes.
Edmonds, 20 pounds heavier, obviously.
He's so big.
He's huge.
It is a
He's
weird
long.
class in terms of the size of guys, just
Mhm.
because for the most part at the position, it's gotten so much smaller. And the fact that Edmonds and Leighton Vander Esch are 255-pound dudes is a weird outlier.
So Leighton Vander Esch will be the third. And is there anyone else that I'm missing here?
Inside, like move linebackers, I would say
Oh.
those are the three that.
So, Rashawn Evans is getting some buzz. He's an outside linebacker.
Yeah, he's a different sort of player.
Oh, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he's a linebacker who's in the mix.
I think if we're comparing the same position, it's move linebackers that are primarily not pass rushers. And in my mind, that's Edmonds, Roquan Smith, and Vander Esch.
Right. So there's some buzz that Smith could go to the Colts now at 6.
So I wrote about this 2 weeks ago. I think that right now, the best way to like just squeeze a tiny bit of value, it depends on where the guy goes. Like if he goes 11, it's not some sort of like diamond in the rough draft steal, but he should probably go higher than that. I just think guys that are a little bit undersized are a great way to like mine an inefficiency right now in the draft. And he's that exact guy. So the fact that he may go 6 is not surprising to me as I think about that
Agree.
position.
I mean, that's why last week I picked a linebacker, Fred Warner, who's like 223 pounds or whatever.
And the guy from South Carolina is the same way. I can't remember his name. It's just the fact that these dudes can play in space and cover, I think is the number one skill that people are overrating. Not all the way, but a little bit.
Okay.
Underrating, excuse me. Overlooking.
Okay. So you're on the board. You're on the clock. You need a linebacker. Who are you taking?
Smith.
Why?
I just think he's so in tune with the game. Like his instincts are so easy. The decision making from him is very seamless. He's always in the right spot. And the way he can stick with running backs matters to me. Like it's very easy to fall in love with the traits for Edmund and Vander Esch. I like both of them for Edmonds and Vander Esch. I think that a team isn't wrong to really like those guys. But I also think that in a way, Edmonds is going to get overrated because of his pass rush ability. And I think Vander Esch is a little bit the same way. When these guys see 6'4", 255, they think, I can use him. He can come off the edge every once in a while. I don't care about that. I care about a guy who is going to be able to play in the middle of the field and just negate mismatches. And that's exactly what Smith does.
I think they're 1A and 1B, quite frankly. I would
To be clear, Edmonds is also a really good coverage guy.
also, and I just to be clear on being clear, it all depends on your system, and you know, it's so much, and so much of this, and this is something we're not privy to, right? So if you're a GM, you ask your offensive or defensive coordinator to come up with a plan for every single player that you're going to draft. If you're going to have a tight end, if you're going to say we're going to take a tight end first overall and he's athletic,
What are we going to do with him?
what are we going to do with
Yeah.
him? And if your offensive coordinator comes back and he doesn't have any ideas, well, you can't fire your offensive coordinator in April. As much as I would fire
That would be amazing, though.
everybody all the time.
Just post-draft, teams like,
just
he
be
just ain't got it.
This was terrible. And as much as I think, yes, you should fire coaches if they can't come up with the plan, there are some times that the coaching staff just has no idea how to use a player. So
My team traded Greg Olson for nothing because they were like, he doesn't
Right.
work. I
Right.
mean, trust me, I know that life very
Right.
well.
And so what I'm saying is that for especially athletic linebackers, if your defense coordinator can't do anything with him, you might want to go somewhere else. So I think that's always a consideration when you're talking about this stuff. It's all human. There are limitations within buildings, and that's something you need to think about when talking about linebackers is how the team is going to use them. In a vacuum, I like Edmonds. I like the size. I like his frame. He's long.
He's huge.
He's athletic. He's 256. 20 pounds heavier. He's fast.
That is such a big linebacker these days. Like, seriously, they just don't make them like that anymore.
I love him. I love him.
He's also pretty adept. Again, this is 100% when it comes to Smith. It's a feel thing. Yep. I just love the feel he has for the game.
I love both of them.
I like Van Der Esch. I mean, I just wrote like a big story about him. I spent a couple of days with him 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I love him. I mean, the guy is an absolute athletic revelation. Like, he's 6'4.5", 255 pounds. He was the heaviest linebacker at the combine, and he jumped 39.5 inches. Vince Carter's vertical is 43 inches. Like, that's insane. It just, they do not build human beings like that. And I also think that his feel is decent.
Yeah.
So a team cannot go wrong at that position if you need a guy in the top half of the first round, in my mind.
Yeah, totally agree. And by the way, there's pretty athletic linebackers that are going to be sprinkled throughout. There's guys in the back half of the draft. Oren Burks from Vanderbilt is incredible, broad. And
it's a very good class. It kind of reminds me of last year's tight end class, where it's just a lot of super, like, uber athletic dudes.
Here's one thing I don't understand. Oren Burks' page, his projection is 6th round. His comp is Tahir Whitehead. If you get Tahir Whitehead, wouldn't you go earlier than 6th round?
Yes. I mean, what is Tahir Whitehead in your mind? Just competent NFL starter? That's how you view him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
you would draft that ahead of the 6th round. Yes.
The back of the 2nd round. Let's do draft crushes.
Sounds good.
Start us off.
Hernandez, the guy from UTEP, the guard.
Yep.
I just think that he is a plug and play day one starter. So for a team that just needs a guy to really tie together their offensive line, that's who he is to me. It's hard to find those guys right now. Yep. We talk about this all the time. There just aren't that many NFL-ready offensive linemen coming into the league. Mm-hmm. He 100% is one of those guys.
Yep, totally agree. And he's a good example of someone who you don't have to spend a top 5 pick on, like Nelson.
Yeah. He'll go in like the Zach Martin range,
right? Would
be my guess.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, getting a high-level starting guard at the 17th pick, you can live with that. Yep. That's fine.
Yep. Okay, I want to talk about Denzel Ward, even though remember, I thought this was sleepers, and then you and Danny just started taking top 5 picks.
This is the first time we have mentioned Denzel Ward's name on the podcast, so it's okay to talk about it.
I want to talk about Denzel Ward's mock draftable page.
It's a wonderful website, by the way.
Number 1 is John Ross, who's a wide receiver. Number 2 is Marshawn Lattimore.
Not bad. 2 for 2.
Let's
keep
going. Number 3
going.
is Corey Coleman.
I did not know he was that fast. What was his 40 time?
His 40 time was 4.37. And by the way, Corey Coleman, his 6th most mock draftable comparison is Devin Hester.
Which
DJ Moore is on here. Previous draft crush of myself. Other guys who are comped to Denzel Ward include Shaquille Griffin and PJ Williams, both of whom are
that's a decent
NFL
group of
starters.
Guys. Like, you'll take that if those are your comps.
Yeah, so I think Lattimore being the number 1 cornerback comp is pretty important.
Not bad.
And he's a guy who played for a big program. He's being mocked in a lot of kind of CB1 areas. People are talking about him maybe as the Colts pick. Colts have been rumored of just everybody. This is what happens when you don't need a quarterback and you're in the top 10. You just get mocked to everybody.
Not only do they not need a quarterback, they need every other position on the field.
But a quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't take Quentin Nelson.
Where are the Colts set?
I would not take Quentin Nelson if I were the Colts. I think you just need other areas.
I see it because they need that sort of just like influx of physicality on their offensive line. They've never had it. I don't know what they'll do. They need every position on the field. So
I don't even know the answer to this. What happened to Ryan Kelly? He's hurt.
Yeah, he's never really gotten in a groove. I mean, he's been hurt so much. It's hard to be hurt early and then settle in. And
yeah.
I think he struggled because of that.
We talked so much about how that was going to change Andrew Luck's fortunes, and Andrew Luck has just gotten worse since then. Health-wise.
That position overall, I think, is that important. And like people saying that and kind of giving it that type of value and just overall impact isn't wrong. Because I think having a high, not even a high level, a real player at that spot is a necessity for any like above average offense. Like think about last year with the Rams and John Sullivan. Like even John Sullivan really ties that all together. And that's what Ryan Kelly was supposed to do, and it just hasn't happened.
Poor Andrew Luck.
I know.
But I think addressing the defense would be the best way to go.
They have a free safety and a couple rotational pass rushers. Henry Anderson's a good player. Hankins is good. Their interior is fine when healthy. But outside of that, they can literally pick anything.
I like Denzel Ward. I'd go Denzel Ward there. Okay, who's your second draft crush?
I really like Marcus Davenport.
Yeah.
I just think that in a class that doesn't have a lot of high-level pass rushing talent, if you can get a guy like that at the back half of the first round, you're going to take it. I like him.
Texas San Antonio.
He's explosive. He uses his hands well. Overall, I just think he's a guy that's going to get you 7 to 8 sacks a season. And in this class at that position, I'll take that every single time.
Wait, Marcus Davenport then was recruited by one Larry Coker at Texas San Antonio.
You could have given me like 10,000 guesses at who the Texas San Antonio
Well, Larry
coach is.
Coker, he retired 4 years ago, but he recruited him.
So he's just recruiting now? Like that's what Larry Coker does?
No.
Okay.
He's
Graduate,
All right.
yeah.
Coker's the big gun they bring in.
Is Larry Coker like a very important person to you?
No.
Really?
No, he's incompetent. He's not good.
Who is like the Miami figurehead that you really have an affinity for?
I mean, there's Jimmy Johnson.
Well, that wasn't like your time.
No, it wasn't in my time, but he continued to be a force.
Sure, but like in your time, who's the guy?
Butch Davis, Ken Dorsey.
Okay, that makes more sense. Butch Davis is a weird answer.
Butch Davis built those teams.
Okay, that's
and they
fair.
were all like 2-star. Ed Reed was a 2-star. His only other offer was from Tulane.
Really?
Yeah. So it actually
did not
ended
know
up
that.
hurting the fan base because now when they would just go out and get some crappy player, they'd be like, well, Ed Reed was a 2-star.
Yeah, that's not how recruiting works.
Well, that's Ed Reed.
Yeah.
He's different.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an alpha all the way.
That would be the first line on Ed Reed's NFL draft page.
It probably was.
Who's your second guy?
We just talked about him 5 minutes ago. Taven Bryan from Florida. Now, there's a couple of things that are important here about Bryan. Number one is that those sort of freak athletes at defensive tackle, it's not like edge rusher. It's not like safety. It's not as 1-to-1.
In what sense?
That, I mean, his closest, it's not Denzel Ward being comped to Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
Even though he's a freak of nature, his comps are Kendall Reyes, Derek Robinson, Marcus Kuhn, Kedrick Golston, J.R. Sweezy, who was obviously flipped to offensive line.
Sure, but none of this is a good sign.
Roderick Wright. Yeah, I'm just telling you, this isn't a particularly athletic defensive tackles. It's not the same 1-to-1 conversion.
Or the same just projection, obviously. Like,
Right,
if he's
that's what I'm
that
saying.
athletic and those are the dudes that are in his ballpark, that's weird.
It's not great, but he's 291 pounds. He can move. He's mocked to the Falcons a lot
That sounds right.
at 26. And this isn't an analytics pick, because as I just discussed, I even though the analytics don't necessarily support ultra athletic defensive tackles being a 1-to-1 conversion like that, he's a really good athlete. He's flexible. He can make plays. His dad's a Navy SEAL. If he wants some
He's from
intangibles.
a weird
He's from
spot, right?
Wyoming.
Yeah. I knew he was up there.
He's from Wyoming. He's 6'5", 290, 32-inch arms. Is that long?
So there are a couple things like at the combine and testing that I have no context for. Like I don't know what a good 3-cone drill time is. I don't know who has long arms. I don't know what a good
I
broad
was
jump
told.
is.
So I
have no idea what you're supposed to do
after
in
our
those
accident,
tests.
I had to start boxing to work out because I couldn't run anymore. And I've been told over the last couple months I have very long arms. Something
should
I
test
just
it.
didn't know.
You should see what your wingspan is.
I had no idea until they were like, "You have long arms." The boxing trainers told me this.
I think I have very average sized limbs.
I'm long. I
am
have
not.
a long frame. I'm one of these prospects who's I'm rangy.
So
I'm rangy.
I literally was writing about Leighton Vander Esch this weekend.
And you thought about how I was rangy?
No, I was trying to think of other words for long because I used it so many times, and rangy is where I landed. So I'm very glad that was your mind and exactly where it went.
Okay. Well, as much as I'd like to talk about our combine
And
measurements,
we need more rangy dudes here in the next couple of days.
We are done. We are just days away from the NFL draft. Are you
2
excited?
days. Yeah, I really love the draft. Like, even before I did this, it was one of my favorite days of the year. I think it's a really good television event. Like, I like watching it, and I will be excited to do so again.
We'll be watching from a bar with Mallory Rubin for video.
Yes.
We'll be filming it.
Have
Excited
we picked a
about
bar yet?
that. We haven't. I think we have, but I don't want to say it. I don't know if we have.
Sure. Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to hang out with Mallory, which I don't get to do very often. I don't live here. So.
Okay. Thanks for listening to the Ringer NFL show on the Ringer Podcast Network.
Thanks, guys.